Right. I just echo what the senator from Arizona has said about the Class Act. He was down here, as was I, and I think many of us, when we were debating this, to say this is a program that's destined to be bankrupt. And in fact, if you look at what even the independent Medicare actuary was saying, that was described, the Class Act was, as unworkable. And they said it would collapse in short order. Within the Health and Human Services Department, there was a nonpartisan career staff who privately called the class program, quote, a recipe for disaster, end quote. There was plenty of warning, advance warning, that this thing wasn't going to work, but as the senator from Arizona correctly pointed out, it was used as a gimmick to make the overall cost of this thing look less and therefore bring it into balance. We now know, of course, that the Class Act couldn't work. Even they've had to acknowledge that. And the amendment that was put on by the senator from New Hampshire, Senator Gregg, that forced them to certify made that abundantly clear. But to the senator from Mississippi's point, the whole purpose of the exercise was we've got to do something about the cost of health care. We've got to get health care costs down for people in this country. And in fact, the President of the United States, when he was running for president, said, and I quote, if you've got health insurance, we're going to work with you to lower your premiums by $2,500 per family per year. And we will not wait 20 years from now to do it, or 10 years from now to do it. We will do it by the end of my first term as President of the United States, end quote. I'm sure that the senator from Arizona probably remembers very well many of these statements. But the facts tell a different story, Madam President. If you look at what health care costs are doing, and even what was predicted by the Congressional Budget Office, they said that the law was going to increase health insurance premiums by 10 to 13%. Which means that families purchasing coverage on their own were going to have to pay an additional $2,100 a year more because of the new law. And that's actually been borne out. If you look at the cost of health insurance for people in this country today, it's gone up, not down. It's gone up dramatically. Since the President took office, about 25% for most Americans. And so all these promises about getting costs under control, all the promises about being able to keep what you have, all the promises about, this being done in a way that would protect Medicare. We all know that Medicare was slashed to the tune, when it's fully implemented, of $1 trillion. And if you look at what the taxes that were imposed by this, $1 trillion in new taxes, the American people got a bad, bad deal. And they know it. And that's why the public opinion polls show that.
Senator from South Dakota, and maybe my other colleagues, even though we've shut down the office of the Class Act, even though the Secretary of Health and Human Services has said that they can't certify that it will be fiscally sustainable over 75 years, it's still on the books. Isn't the Class Act still on the books? You think that it might be appropriate, since we can't comply with the law, that maybe we could repeal that portion of the law? Would that be something we might think about? In fact, I think it might be a pretty good amendment.
Good amendment, and by the way, we have that amendment, and we'd be happy to offer it. We tried to call the bill up. It was objected to by the Democrats to get rid of it, because the bad thing about bad ideas around here is they tend to come back. And this is a bad idea that ought to be put away once and for all, and yet it is on the books, as the senator from Arizona has pointed out. I mean, I don't know why, after all the evidence out there now that has been put forward, including the Health and Human Services Secretary saying this will not work, we continue to maintain this on the books in hopes, I think, that for some, at least, in the administration, that it can be resurrected at some point in the future. But this is a bad idea. It was a bad idea then. It will be a bad idea in the future, because it just doesn't pencil out. You cannot make it work. The only thing it does is saddle future generations of Americans with massive amounts of debt.